Hello, friends. I am here with a delightful essay titled On Doors. On Doors is one of the most popular essays of Christopher Darlington Morley, the American journalist, columnist, essayist, and novelist. He wrote poems too, by the way. He has written more than 100 novels, and his novels Narcissus on the Wheels and The Haunted Bookshop were immensely popular. Morley's essay on doors has been prescribed for study in various universities, and this essay is one of my personal favorites as it continues to amaze me as to how somebody could write so engagingly about something as simple and as mundane as a door. Now let's read the essay so that you too can share my excitement about this essay. On doors. The opening and closing of doors are the most significant actions of man's life. What a mystery lies in doors. No man knows what awaits him when he opens a door. Even the most familiar room where the clock ticks and the hearth grows red at dusk may harbor surprises. The plumber may actually have called while you were out and fixed the leaking faucet. The cook may have had a fit of vapors and demanded passports. The wise man opens his front door with humility and a spirit of acceptance. So, the first sentence, he says, the opening and closing of doors are the most significant actions of man's life because a door always contains mystery. Because you can never say what lies on the other side of the door. We do not think about it actually. Whenever I read the essay, I do think of the fact that we never really consider this as a significant thing, opening and closing of doors, because we do that every day, so many times every day. But then the truth is that a door can shroud a mystery. So that's why he says, no man knows what awaits him when he opens a door. Even the most familiar room in your house might harbor surprises. Like, for instance, simple things, he says. He begins with simple things. He says, maybe you had a leaking faucet, and a faucet is a tap, and a plumber, maybe he came and he repaired the tap. Or maybe in the morning when you went, the cook was in perfectly good mood, but then by the time you came in the evening, she was in a bad mood and she demanded her passports. Now, demanding passports, Christopher Morley is an American writer, and I guess there in America we have many of the domestic help. They would be people from other countries, other places, and so that is why he says the cook who was in a perfectly good mood in the morning when you left home, maybe something must have happened in between, and you would find her in a very bad mood in the evening, and she would demand her passports. So the wise man opens his front door. So that's why he says a wise man always opens his front door with humility and a spirit of acceptance. So a wise man is always ready to accept that something might happen when you open a door. Which one of us has not sat in some anteroom and watched the inscrutable panels of a door that was full of meaning? Perhaps you were waiting to apply for a job. Perhaps you had some deal you were ambitious to put over. You watched the confidential stenographer flit in and out, carelessly turning that mystic portal which to you revolved on hinges of fate. And then the young woman said, Mr. Cranberry will see you now. As you grasped the knob, the thought flashed, when I open this door again, what will have happened? So he gives us another example of how you are seated in an anteroom and you are very eagerly watching the door, the inscrutable panels, because we know that most doors are not transparent. You can't see through them. So you wonder what's happening. Like you have either applied for a job or you had a deal to settle with the person on the other side. So your fate hangs on his decision. And in such instances, you are so full of anticipation and worry, and you sit on the other side of the room wondering what is happening inside. And then the secretary would come and say that you can go in. And as you go in, as you grasp the knob of the door, you wonder, when I open this door again, what will have happened? Now he goes on to describe various kinds of doors. There are many kinds of doors: revolving doors for hotels, shops, and public buildings. These are typical of the brisk, bustling ways of modern life. Can you imagine John Milton and William Penn, or William Penn skipping through a revolving door? Then there are the curious little slatted doors that still swing outside denatured bar rooms and extend only from shoulder to knee. There are trap doors, sliding doors, double doors, stage doors, prison doors, glass doors. But the symbol and mystery of a door resides in its quality of concealment. A glass door is not a door at all, but a window. The meaning of a door is to hide what lies inside, to keep the heart in suspense. So he says that there are many kinds of doors. You have revolving doors in hotels and shops and public buildings. So revolving doors, it is made to suit the busy life of modern times, where you don't have the time to wait for a door to open and somebody to come out or to let another person in. Instead, you can, you know what revolving doors are. So you can come in and a person will come in and while another person comes out at the same time. So it saves a lot of time. So he says that revolving doors are typical of the brisk and bustling ways of modern life. And he says, can you imagine John Milton or William Penn skipping through a revolving door? John Milton, of course, the English poet, and William Penn, again, an Englishman, but later on he was one of the settlers in America, and he was the founder of the province of Pennsylvania in America. And so they lived at a time when the world moved in a very unhurried pace, very laid back, relaxed, with all the time in the world. There was no hustle and bustle. And so he says, can you imagine the people of those times using a revolving door? Then he talks about slatted doors, that is, those shoulder to knee doors, doors that just partially conceal what is inside. Then all kinds of doors he mentions. But he says, for a door to be called a door, it should be able to conceal what is on the other side. And therefore he says that a glass door cannot be called a door at all. It's only a window, he says, because you can see what's happening inside and outside. So the meaning of the door is to hide what lies inside, to keep the heart in suspense. Also, there are many ways of opening doors. There is a cheery push of elbow with which the waiter shoves open the kitchen door when he bears in your tray of supper. There is the suspicious and tentative withdrawal of a door for the unhappy book agent or peddler. There is the genteel and carefully modulated recession with which footmen swing wide the oaken barriers of the grate. There is the sympathetic and awful silence of the dentist's maid who opens a door into the operating room and without speaking implies the doctor is ready for you. There is the brisk cataclysmic opening of the door when a nurse comes in very early in the morning. It's a boy. So there he says now there are different ways. Just earlier he spoke about different types of doors, and now he speaks about various ways of opening doors. So he talks, the first one he tells us about is the waiter who's laden with trays. Both his hands are busy holding the trays and the plates, the stacked plates. So he shoves the kitchen door with his shoulder, and while he comes in with your tray of supper. So that is a very cheery opening of a door, because it makes you happy, especially when you have children with you and you're really hungry. They look in the direction from where the waiter would emerge from the kitchen, and they're so happy when he comes towards your direction. And so that is a cheery push of the elbow. And then there is a look when there is a book agent or a peddler at your door, and you really don't want, you are suspicious when you open the door, and you are tentative. It's a tentative withdrawal of a door because you really don't want to open your door because you are not looking forward to meeting a peddler or a book agent. You want to get rid of them at the earliest. And so there is a very suspicious and tentative withdrawal of a door. Then there is the genteel and carefully. Okay, so the other one is when you go to the when you go to the house of the rich people, the noble aristocratic homes. When you go there, you have footman opening the door for you. There are huge, wide oak doors, and so it is very it is opened in a particular style, a very genteel and carefully so they don't just pull open the door, but it's opened at a very slow pace. And there is the sympathetic and awful. Then again, there is this dentist's operating room, where nobody's happy to go into a dentist's operating room because you're worried about the pain and the drilling noise that's going to reverberate in your head for a long time. So when the maid opens the door to the operating room, she looks at you very sympathetically, meaning to say that the doctor is ready for you, and she knows that you're not happy to go in. And then there is a very happy door opening when you're outside waiting, expecting the arrival of a baby, and there is this nurse coming, bursting out of the door and saying, "It's a boy." So that is another kind of a door opening. Doors are a symbol of privacy, of retreat, of the mind's escape into blissful quietude, of a sad secret struggle. A room without doors is not a room, but a hallway. No matter where he is, a man can make himself at home behind a closed door. The mind works best behind closed doors. Men are not horses to be herded together. Dogs know the meaning and anguish of doors. Have you ever noticed a puppy yearning at a shut portal? It is a symbol of human life. So he says that doors are a symbol of privacy because human beings, though we are social beings, there are times when we like to be alone. Solitude is something, it is a blessing at times when you're sad, or maybe when you are in a very relaxed mood, you would like to be alone. And that is why he says a room without a door is not a room at all. You can only call it a hallway. And no matter where he is, a man can make himself at home behind a closed door. So that is something that I have often wondered. A door, it doesn't have to be a solid oak door like the one mentioned earlier. It can simply be something as flimsy as a tin door. When you go in to the dressing room in a textile, a textile shop. So there again, the door of the dressing room is not exactly a very solid kind of a door, but any kind of a door where you can just close it and be on your own on the other side. It gives you a feeling of security. So the mind works best behind closed doors. So what he means there is that most people like to work in solitude. When creative people, or when you are doing some very serious thinking, you often like to be alone in a closed room. And men are not horses to be herded together, in the sense that though you like being in company of others, it doesn't mean that you're always. It doesn't mean that you always enjoy company. There are times when you should be alone. And then he says, dogs. A dog is an animal that fully understands the agony of the anguish of doors, because when you shut your dog out, it will remain sitting there and staring at the door with very longing eyes, yearning to go in. So that is why he says that, have you ever noticed a puppy yearning at a shut portal? Because a dog is a very loyal creature. It loves, it enjoys the company of its humans. And therefore, if you try to shut out a door, that is a great anguish to the poor animal. And so he says, a dog, like human beings, fully understands the sadness of being shut out. The opening of doors is a mystic act. It has in it some flavor of the unknown, some sense of moving into a new moment, a new pattern of the human rigmarole. It includes the highest glimpses of mortal gladness. It includes the highest glimpses of mortal gladness, reunions, reconciliations, the bliss of lovers long parted. Even in sadness, the opening of a door may bring relief. It changes and redistributes human forces. So he says the opening of doors is a mystic act. Because, as mentioned earlier, you never know what the opening of a door leads to. There is always a flavor of the unknown. And a new moment might be opened on the other side. Maybe it can reveal something happy. Maybe a person who you really love has suddenly come home and he's on the other side of the door. Maybe you're opening a door to a world of new opportunities. Maybe you're joining a new job. So the opening of a door is always a mystic act. It includes the highest glimpses of mortal. So most of the happy things that happen in your life is somehow associated with the opening of doors, like reunions, reconciliations. A reconciliation happens when you are estranged from a friend, maybe, and then somehow you once again meet and decide to forget your differences, to bury the hatchet. And then, so a meeting always takes place in a place where you open your door and then you open a door. You shut the door on your past and you open your door to the present, and it brings you happiness. The bliss of lovers long parted. So opening doors is always happiness. Even in sadness, the opening of a door may bring relief. It changes and redistributes human forces. But the closing of doors is far more terrible. It is a confession of finality. Every door closed brings something to an end. And there are degrees of sadness in the closing of doors. So he says that while the opening of doors in most cases signifies joy, that is not the case with closing of doors. It's often terrible. There is a kind of a finality because some doors, once closed, can never be opened. Or even if you open, things would have changed. So every closed door brings something to an end. And there are degrees of sadness in closing of doors. A door slammed is a confession of weakness. A door gently shut is often the most tragic gesture in life. Everyone knows the seizure of anguish that comes just after the closing of a door, when a loved one is still near, within sound of voice, and yet already far away. So there are different types of closing doors. When somebody slams a door, it is a sign of weakness. When you're angry and you slam the door, when you're sad and you slam the door, it shows that you are not in control of yourself and your feelings. So it is a betrayal of your weakness. But a door gently shut is very tragic because it signifies a very deliberate action, a well thought out decision. You have made your mind. It's not impulsive, but you have decided that this door is going to be shut. That has a finality, which is very tragic. And again, he talks of the kind of a door closing that happens when two people decide to drift apart, when a love affair has come to an end, when a marriage has come to an end. So there is the closing of the door. There is only the door between you and your beloved. But then nothing can open the door again. because your minds have already become estranged. So that is a very sad instance of a door closing. The opening and closing of doors is a part of the stern fluency of life. Life will not stay still and let us alone. We are continually opening doors with hope. We are continually opening doors with hope, closing them with despair. Life lasts not much longer than a pipe of tobacco, and destiny knocks us out like ashes. So he says you can't avoid opening and closing doors. It is a part of your life. You can't decide to cut away yourself from everybody. So life will not stay still and let us alone. We are continually opening. Opening doors always signify hope, and you close them with despair. And he says life is very short oftentimes. It's not much longer than a pipe of tobacco, and destiny knocks us out like the ashes. So things don't last forever, whether it is happiness or whether it is sorrow. It doesn't last forever. Happy times come to a very quick end. Sad times too, fortunately, come to an end. So there's a beautiful comparison. He compares life to a pipe of tobacco. The closing of a door is irrevocable. It snaps the pack thread of the heart. It is no avail to reopen, to go back. Pinero spoke nonsense when he made Paula Tancred say, "The future is only the past entered through another gate." Alas, there is no other gate. When the door is shut, it is shut forever. There is no other entrance to that vanished pulse of time. The moving finger writes, having writ. He says that the closing of a door is irrevocable because oftentimes, as mentioned earlier elsewhere in the essay, there is a finality that comes with the closing of doors. There is no, you can never be sure that you can once again go back to the same condition once a door is closed and opened. The closing of a door often snaps the pack thread of the heart. You can't reopen and go back in. You can't often reopen a door and go back in to find the same things, to find things as they were. Pinero, here the reference is to Arthur Wing Pinero, who wrote the play titled The Second Mrs. Tancred. So he wrote this dialogue for Mrs. Paula Tancred. The future is only the past entered through another gate. But our author says that is not true. That is nonsense. The future is only the past entered through another gate. That is not true. Because the past is another country altogether. You cannot go back to the past that easily. Alas, there is no other gate. When the door is shut, it is shut forever. There is no other entrance to that vanished pulse of time. The moving finger writes and having writ. So this sentence, the moving finger writes and having writ, it actually is the opening line in a poem. You see this in the translation of Omar Khayyam by Edward Fitzgerald. The moving finger writes and having writ moves on. So what it means is that you cannot change the past. Once something has happened, it is done. Maybe you can improve on it, maybe you can repeat it, but then you cannot redo or undo what has already been done. So that is the same case with a closed door. Once a decision is made and you close a door on a relationship, on a case, on some kind of an issue, it is closed forever. Even if you try to open it and go back in, you will find that something essentially has changed. There is a certain kind of door shutting that will come to us all. The kind of door shutting that is done very quietly, with the sharp click of the latch to break the stillness. They will think then, one hopes, of our unfulfilled decencies rather than of our perfected misdemeanors. Then they will go out and close the door. So the essay, we can see, began in a very light and a very happy tone. It was almost like an easy banter. It was telling us of all sorts of doors and closing doors. But then when it comes towards the end, it assumes a kind of a gravity. And the last paragraph, he says that there is one door shutting that will come to all of us. And this door shutting is done very quietly. And there is the last sound you would hear would be the sharp click of a latch to break the stillness. So what is he talking about? He's talking about death and the final closure. You're dead and you put in the coffin and the latch falls into place with a sharp click. And he says that at that time, let us hope that people will remember our unfulfilled decencies rather than approve perfected misdemeanors. So he hopes that when he is dead, the people around him will forget his pluperfected, that is his past misdemeanors, the wrongs that he had done, and instead they would remember our unfulfilled decencies, that is the good things we did or we intended to do. Hope people will remember them and not our misdemeanors, because everybody wants to be remembered as good people. And so the dying wish is that we will be remembered for our good deeds, not for our bad ones. Then they will go out and close the door. And once the ceremony, the funeral is over, the mourners will go out of the door and close it. And there is the final door closing. There are no more closings and openings of doors as far as a dead person is concerned. So that is the essay on doors. Now this is an essay which each time I read it leaves me in a very pensive mood. As I said earlier, it begins on a very happy note, in a very light-hearted, happy-go-lucky manner. And you find it quite humorous too. But then slowly, as he opens and closes each door, the seriousness comes over the topic, and the door, a simple wooden slate, it stops being that and it assumes a seriousness. And you start really thinking about what the writer is trying to tell us. You understand that what he's saying is true, that the opening and closing of a door is not always as simple as we think it is. That the opening and the closing of the door is not always as simple as it seems to be. And there is a sense of finality, a sense of sorrow that comes over the reader by the time they near the end of the essay. Because we are reminded of death and the inevitability of death and how there is no comeback from death. It not only reminds us of our own death, but it also reminds us of the very sad and frightening fact that one day we will lose all our dear ones, that they too will disappear behind a closed door. And you start worrying about losing your loved ones. So I love the way the essay progresses, though of course it ends in a very grave manner. Yet, as I say, I love the way the writer builds up the essay from something very simple, something very plain, to something very, very complex and philosophical. So, this essay, I have often wondered why it is not prescribed more often. Because it is amazing how something as simple as a door and an action as simple as closing and opening doors can be treated with such creativity. And so this one will always remain a favorite essay. And the main purpose that I'm doing this video is so that more people would come to read this essay and listen to it and understand what a beautiful work of literature it is.